Good morning. Barry Bryson here. Thank you for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word. We're continuing our study entitled Four Women, where we're looking at the four women whom Matthew mentions in Jesus' genealogy in Matthew chapter 1. And we began with Tamar, who's mentioned in Matthew chapter 1, verse 3. And to Judah were born Perez and Zerah by Tamar. And to Perez was born Hezron, and to Hezron Ram, and on and on. Perez and Zerah were twins, and that we didn't read that part of the story. But Zerah, as he was being, a hand came out, and the midwife tied a red thread to the hand to make sure everyone knew he was the firstborn. But then he wasn't the firstborn because his brother came out first, and so he was technically the firstborn. Several stories in the Old Testament where the younger takes precedence over the older. Jacob and Esau, twins. Jacob usurps, Esau's position. And then Joseph's sons and their blessing switched younger to older as well. So this is one of those stories that seems to be a theme. So we read the story yesterday, the whole thing where she was supposed to be given to the youngest son so that she could have children. She was left in limbo in her father's house, a married woman, but not a married woman, or when her father-in-law was a widower. And that's important to establish. He was not cheating on his wife with a prostitute. He was a widower. Um, and she pretends to be a prostitute. Father-in-law hasn't seen her in years. She's got a veil on. He sleeps with her, and she has a child by her father-in-law. It's the whole bit of the intrigue where she gets his signet ring and his staff and his cord and all this stuff. And he wants to have her burned because he finds out she's pregnant. Then he finds out he's the dad. And all of that is unearthed for our thought, for our remembrance, whenever she is mentioned by name. Why did Matthew do that? Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. One is, and we can't underestimate the importance of this, Judah is necessary. Judah is actually the necessary person in the book of Genesis who has to survive. It's Judah, because Judah is the one through whom the Messiah is going to be born. Judah, the fourth child of Jacob and Leah. His birth is auspicious. It is when he is born that his mother says, I'm not going to try to please my husband anymore. This time I'm just going to praise God. And that's why she names him Judah. And he's the one through whom the Messiah is going to be born. And he's not a good guy. Not when we meet him, not till he's old enough to have grandchildren. Do we start seeing a glimmer of goodness in him. And we see that first in the story of him um, conceiving a child with his daughter-in-law, unwittingly conceiving a child with his daughter-in-law, because he says she is more righteous than I am. That's huge that he would say that, but it's also true. And he did say it. And it prepares us for what's going to happen later in the book of Genesis, which is he performs the great act of sacrifice in the entire, or offers to, in the entire book of Genesis, and proves that of all the patriarchs, he's the one through whom Jesus must be born. Um, so we have this first glimpse of the goodness that Judah is capable of in this story. It's also a reminder of all the Canaanites that are in the lineage, because um, his first wife is a Canaanite, and he's living among the Canaanites. He's not with his brothers, and so she's a foreign woman, and we're reminded of that. And that's important too, and that's going to be a theme throughout. Three of these women are foreign, and the gospel is for all. And God's people have always included others, not just descendants of Abraham. And so that is an important reminder. There's the whole notion of the truth and the way we are. I mean, the refusal to gild the memories of these patriarchs is necessary. because it reminds us that we're all sinners and that we all of us have a relationship with God because he loves us, because of his grace. And if it weren't because of his goodness and his love for us and his grace shown to us, we would all be doomed. We would all be condemned. Uh, you know, uh, we just a few weeks ago studied Psalm 90 by Moses. Psalm 90 would seem optimistic to us if this wasn't true. And it's necessary for us to remember because it's so easy for us, and it was certainly easy for observant Jews of Matthew's day to think that they always maintained the moral high ground and that they were looking down from that summit of the moral high ground on everyone else. And Jesus continually reminds us, no, 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 no. All of us need grace. We are all sinners. And this is the kind of human story that everyone has in their lives and their backgrounds, and Jesus does too. And that's important for us to know. Okay, um, that's what we wanted to say about Tamar. We'll talk about Rahab next time. Thank you so much for joining me for another 5 good minutes with the Word.